All this past week, we have been noticing and paying attention to the common threads woven throughout the events of Holy Week and Easter. From the cloaks cast before Jesus upon his triumphant entry into Jerusalem, to the servant's towel with which he washed and dried the feet of his disciples at the Last Supper, to his own clothes divided amongst the soldiers at his crucifixion, and of course, the linen cloth that received his body as Joseph of Arimathea and others took his body down from the cross and wrapped it in linen and laid it in the tomb. The same cloth that Simon Peter and the disciple Jesus loved found in an otherwise empty tomb on that first Easter morning so long ago. The same cloth that takes us from the despair of Good Friday to the joyous hope in which we gathered this morning. They saw the linen wrappings lying there, and the cloth that had been on Jesus' head, not lying with the linen wrappings, but rolled up in a place by itself. The linen cloths were there, but Jesus' body was not. The shock and misunderstanding that Mary and the disciples reveal at the tomb should not come as a surprise to us, for we too have endured the same excruciating absence they experienced after the Good Friday death of Jesus, in between the cross and resurrection. Holy Saturday, that strange time of waiting in between the agony of Good Friday and the inbreaking of Easter morning. Of grave clothes left behind, a symbol of something already and not yet. In fact, while this is the second Easter we have celebrated under the lockdowns and restrictions of pandemic, it has felt like a year of Holy Saturdays to me, as we have endured the Groundhog Dayness of waiting out the virus, entombed in what has become our new normal. Except this year, this Easter, there is even more hope as vaccines become more and more available, making the virus less and less lethal. There is light not only at the end of the tunnel, but at the exit from our own COVID tomb as we prepare to climb out of it. Still, we are a church in between, for we will be forever changed by this past year. While we are beginning to explore how we might soon regather in person, the question the grave clothes left behind asks is, what will we leave behind as we emerge from the entombment of lockdown? What will we fold up neatly, roll up, and lay aside? And what will we bring with us? What will our resurrection clothes look like? For we are, as disciples of Christ, an Easter people. What we know here and now that the disciples didn't that first Easter morning is that the horrific event of the cross was not the end of the story. Neither was the loss and absence and isolation of the following long day. There was something already, and something yet to come. Something glorious, something victorious. Even in the tomb, Jesus saves, harrowing hell and opening the gates of heaven for the righteous, making the next day the empty tomb not really empty at all. For along with the grave clothes left behind there is also our salvation, our redemption. And rolled up and placed to the side all our shame and doubt and fear, and in their place, new life that looks nothing at all like the old. When it comes to the resurrection, we too often tend to ask the wrong questions, trying to keep even life on the other side of Holy Saturday the same as it always was this side of it. Even someone like Mary Magdalene, who had known Jesus so dearly, seems to have wanted things to have remained the same. She weeps because she thinks Jesus' body has been stolen, not resurrected. Then, encountering his resurrected body, she mistakes him for the gardener, for heaven's sake. What else can we imagine from this other than the resurrected life transcends all our earthly imaginings of how things used to be, are now, or even will be? Even after seeing the grave clothes left behind, Simon Peter and the disciple Jesus loved didn't fully understand. They returned to their homes, went back to the way things were. Do you see where I'm going here? I know we want to get back to something like the way it was before COVID. But as we emerge from the entombment of this past year, our focus ought not to be on returning so much as rising up, not getting back to something, but moving forward as the resurrected church. God gives us the amazing capacity to learn and grow and change and become our whole lives long and even beyond our earthly lives. We ought to be constantly witnessing to that change, validating faith and strengthening our gratitude, always imagining bigger and better things for ourselves and each other, and especially the church. For Christ is risen. Christ is risen indeed. Let him Easter in us, then, as the poet priest Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote so long ago, let him Easter in us. And perhaps Hopkins holds out a key for us to unlock our own resurrections and the strangeness of these times we are living through. To think of Easter not as a noun, not as a sacred holiday, a one-time event, or even some secular harbinger of spring, but as a verb, an action, something we all can do, even in this time of restrictions and things we can't do. For if we can walk along the path before us as living Easters, with Christ Eastering in each of us, we will surely see the world with new eyes, eyes of thanksgiving, for that is what Eucharist means, to give thanks. And when we do, when we embody and enliven that holy verb, Easter, with ongoing thanksgiving instead of simply celebrating a one-time noun, when we adapt ourselves, as Paul wrote in his letter to the Romans, no longer to the pattern of this present world, but let our minds be remade and our whole natures thus transformed, well, I think we might just be finally and fully clothed in the truth of the resurrection. This is the Lord's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. On this day the Lord has acted. We will rejoice and be glad in it. We rejoice not only in glad expectation, we rise with Christ in glory, for he is risen. He is risen indeed. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.